your daughter's outlook going through that adversity, do you think her positive outlook on it had a lot to do with how you and your wife were being on the day to day through that period? Like, you were
Yeah,
keeping a more positive outlook or figure it out mentality.
that is a really great question. And I got to tell you, I've been on almost 150 podcasts and no one's ever asked me that. So that's a great question. Thank you for that. I do think that's the way it was because we decided that we could never show her our fear. Okay. We didn't hide things from her, but we could never show her how petrified we were. And that everything was just going to be okay. I mean, we're going to find our way through this. And I remember telling her, I said, I think we all go through 3 or 4 absolutely horrendous things in our lifetime, whether it's an accident, an injury, a loss of a loved one, whatever it might be, a financial problem, whatever, a crime, who knows? And I said, this is a big one. This is one that is one of those three. So feel as though you're getting, you got that out of the way now. Okay. And you can move on with your life and just know that you're going to always be able to find someone who's a lot less fortunate than you. That's for sure. And in fact, we did on the day of her surgery. We were walking back to the hotel and there was a homeless guy there. And Nicole looked at me and she said, "You know what, Dad, I don't have it nearly as bad as that guy does." Okay. And that just blew our minds because she's 12 and she's recognizing that. She's still half sedated probably, but
Yeah.
it was a pretty momentous, period of time for us. And, I thank God that she came through it and she's fine now. But yeah, I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
Hi, welcome to another episode of Unlocked from Within. Today's guest we have is Ken Rush, a best-selling author of Blue Collar Cash. He's an entrepreneur, a blue-collar advocate, showing that there's no degree required for comfort, peace, and freedom. Ken spent his younger years digging ditches and working in construction. He never went to college. Instead, he made goals, planned, and worked hard for 30 years. Now, Ken is a very successful entrepreneur with multiple businesses and revenue streams. Ken Rusk specializes in mentoring and has coached hundreds of young people in areas such as short, mid, and long-term goal setting, life visualization, career paths, and sound financial planning. He is passionate about helping people achieve their dreams regardless of their educational background or past. So let's welcome Ken Rush to Unlocked from Within. Hey, Ken, welcome to Unlocked from Within.
Thanks, Marty. I appreciate you having me.
Awesome. I really enjoyed your book, Blue Collar Cash. I listened to the Audible version of it because I just find I listen more while I'm driving. So I find it's a good time while I'm driving, or if I'm just doing some work in where I can concentrate on both as well. So really love the book and the practical tools and strategies, which I'd love to get into today.
Absolutely. Well, again, thanks for having me. I love talking about this. It's an important subject. So
yeah, it's awesome. Like, obviously you're reaching a lot of people. I'm in Australia and you're whereabouts in the US are you?
in the Midwest, we're in the state of Ohio, which is right on the Michigan and Ohio border on the western end of Lake Erie. So
awesome. So we'll get right into it. And I'd like to start with your childhood and upbringing.
Well, I had 4 brothers and we were all under the age of 9 at one point. So my father and he was just getting into the business world, so we didn't have a whole lot, so we had to kind of create our own fun and we had to create our own things that we wanted to do. And he was an ex-Marine, so he ran the household like a like a platoon. Okay, but that was good because he gave us all a lot of structure and gave us all a lot of discipline, which we needed on occasion. But yeah, it was good for us because, we knew that if we wanted something beyond shelter and food and, protection and all those kinds of things that parents do, we had to go find a way to do it. And so that was kind of a good building block for us from a discipline standpoint to figure out how to take care of ourselves.
Yeah, right. And like growing up with how many other siblings were in the family?
Well, there was 4 brothers and my mother and father, and we lived in a small house in Amherst, Ohio, and it was great. Sometimes I think people, because we didn't have much, but we didn't know that. So it wasn't like we were walking around saying like they do today, well, I'm in this class or you're in that class, or I'm rich or I'm poor, or I'm middle class. We didn't even know any of that. All we knew is we got up and we lived our lives and we had fun. So not having a lot wasn't something that was on our minds ever. But certainly the will and the want to do more things and better things it was out there. And again, I credit my father and my mother, because he traveled a lot for work. So she was like, she was kind of like the queen of the castle. And she kept us straight, and she kept us fed and happy, and did everything that she could do to raise us in a great way.
And do you think looking back, what were the key foundation things they imprinted on you and your brothers? Like, do you think it was the values? And
well, yeah, again, my father would say things like, he would make sure that we made our bed so tight that you could bounce a quarter off of it. Okay. We cleaned our room. If we didn't clean our room, he would go in there and destroy the room. And then we'd have to spend hours putting it back together. And he'd put a big sign on the door that said, boom. So you only had to do that once or twice, and then you figured it out. And my mom was, she was just a super kind, gentle, peaceful person. And so she ironed out the rough edges of 5 boys all bouncing into each other all the time, because we lived in a small house. And yeah, I think it was a combination of calm and kindness with also some pretty serious discipline, but also, again, we can provide this for you. If you need something beyond that, then find a way to go get it, which all of us did. We all had jobs very early in our lives. And, it was the whole want it, chase it, get it, reward kind of thing. And so that worked well for all of us.
Yeah, right. And how old were you when you first got your first little job?
I was 12, actually. I worked
Wow.
I worked a paper route for a little while, delivered papers. But it was tough because it was winter. It was really tough with a bicycle and a bag full of papers, especially on Sunday morning when they were all really big papers. So I did that for a while, and then I worked in a bakery for a while. I worked in a bowling alley for a while. I had jobs as a telemarketer, jobs as a construction guy, as a ditch digger, a landscaper. I did a lot of different things. And again, the basis for most, if not all of that, was, okay, I can see things that I want for myself. I need to find a way to go get them. And that was the way to do it.
And like with schooling, like in the book, you took a different path. I don't know about in the US, but in Australia, there is a lot of pressure in the school system to, you can be a doctor or a lawyer, a nurse, or an engineer. This is when I was growing up. But what if you didn't want to do any of those things?
Yeah, it's troubling, because I think some of the greatest careers out there are the ones that you do things with your hands, where you build, create, you fix, you repair, you anything, maintain, where you can actually be in control of your input, you're in control of your output, the quality of that output, you're in control of your time, your schedule, you're in control of your financial gain most times. So for me, and that happens in the US too. There's a whole lot of pressure. For some reason, we decided to get rid of shop classes. I don't know if you had shop classes.
Yeah, we luckily we did. And I think that was, we had that from 13, 14, 15. And then if you enjoyed that, you could go into that when you were 16 and 17. And so we had the direction of, you could do, go off to be, if that's what you wanted to be, a builder or an electrician or a plumber, you could go do that. But yeah, for me, like I had my first business selling lollies when I was 8. And throughout high school, and primary school, it wasn't for me. Like I just was bored and just was like, what is the point of this? And if someone was to go back and said to me, look, what about starting a business? I would have, and that was the subject, I would have been all in, and probably would have paid a lot more attention.
Yeah, well,
school.
it's great that you say that, because they took the shop classes out of our high school about when I was leaving, and they replaced those rooms with computers. And I know that we all need to learn computers. Obviously, we needed to learn that, but why did it have to be one versus the other? Why couldn't we have had both? And I really mean that, because shop class was where millions of kids almost accidentally discovered these trades and how cool they were. I could walk down the hallway and see a guy fixing a transmission in an old Mustang. I could see someone, doing someone's hair. I could see someone welding something, or building a barn, or, plumbing something, or wiring an outlet. And that's where you kind of discovered that stuff, unless you had an uncle that was in that, or a father that was in that position. So they eliminated that whole choice. And all the high schools became all of a sudden college prep schools, whatever that means. And now I feel bad, because if you're a kid in a college prep school and you're like, I want to be a carpenter, am I like an outcast, or, am I going to be shamed some way? But for everyone out there listening, supply and demand and those types of, biases, they create opportunities that are incredibly good. And that's kind of what we talk about in Blue Collar Cash. If you can figure out what you want your life to look like, Marty, there's a lot of different ways to get there. And getting there is the whole thing. No one's going to drive up into your driveway and look at what you've accomplished and go, wow, where'd you go to college? I mean, they're going to ask you what you did.
Yeah.
And so I just think it's really important that we pay respect and attention to these jobs, because they're still around today. In the U.S., there's 176 million people working as considered full employment. Half of those people do something with their hands. That's still around now. I mean, by the time you get out of bed in the morning and get ready and go to church or school or your office, wherever you're going, you've crossed 1,000 blue-collar jobs that are still in play today. But if less people are willing to do them, guess what happens? Where supply is low and the demand is high, that's where the money goes, and that's what you're seeing now.
Yeah, that's interesting. Really interesting. And so, like, throughout your teenage years, like, did you feel you had more of an idea of what you wanted to do, or were you still just trying different things and just seeing what interested you?
Well, yes, I liked being outside. I liked working with my hands. I liked creating. I liked what I call the stand back moment, where you stand back and lean on your shovel at the end of the day and you look at what you've done, whether you've planted a bunch of beautiful pine trees and put some mulch down and some stone and whatever, a beautiful landscape, or whatever it might be. You're building an outdoor kitchen or whatever it might be. I loved that moment. But in tandem with that, I got pretty good at saying, okay, I want that. I'm going to go work a job and I'm going to get that. Okay, I want this thing. I'm going to go work a job and I'm going to get that thing. I got pretty good at that whole process. So for me, as long as I could keep improving my life picture, which is really what this is all about, Marty, it's all about what you see your life looking like and how clearly you can see that, because your brain is so amazingly powerful at what it sees clearly. And that can be good or bad, okay? If you focus on what you want your life to look like and all the beauty and splendor that you could create, and you can get that really clearly and vividly into your mind, you're going to walk that walk whether you know it or not. And that's what we don't teach people. We don't teach them how to think about the big picture of what their life could look like, what their nirvana might. We teach them how to live for Friday and how to pay your bills and, baloney. I mean, life, if you don't happen to life is going to happen to you. And I think that's the really important thing, because you have the opportunity to live this life the way you want it, but you have to see it first before you can go after it. And I think that's the biggest difference between how I look at things and how others do, because they think, well, I got to get a high school degree or a high school diploma, and then I got to get a scholarship. We got to get a good score on my ACT, and then I got to go to a nice college and get a degree, and then get a job where it pays well, and then I can start living. Baloney, that's backwards. What you have to do is you have to pick the life that you want, and then find one of the many ways to get there.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Yeah, and it's interesting. Like for me, growing up, I'd do all these odd jobs like yourself. Like I'd go a mentor. Probably, I'd say be one of my first mentors. he had a bit of acreage, bit of land, and he had a lot of horse manure, and he needed someone to clean up and pick up the horse manure. So me and my best friend at the time, we'd go. We're like, oh, we can find money and we'll make money doing this. And we did all little odd jobs like that, or painting and whatnot. But while doing all these little jobs, I was even a kitchen hand at one point. While doing each job, I was just doing it for the money, and it felt like work. Did you have that feeling going through all those odd jobs where it's like, it's great, I'm getting rewarded for the work I'm doing, but it feels like work, not something I actually want to be doing?
Well, I looked at it this way. You can't drive a dollar bill. Okay. You can't golf with the dollar bill. You can't create a memory with. So in my mind, it's all about what did that money represent? Okay. As long as I had my eye on the bigger prize, which is the direction my life was going, then if it was work, that was fine because I was gaining on it. I was beating the system. Okay. No one was holding me down. I was creating that picture. It's almost like, Marty, if you have a puzzle, and a lot of people, they start with the edges because that's the easy part. And then you start filling in the inside, right? But you can't build that puzzle without the box. You can't build that puzzle without the picture. So you can try, but it's going to take you a very long time.
A lot longer.
So, yeah. So for me, as long as the picture and the puzzle was showing itself, I could do any type of job. I mean, I could work a shovel, I could work a jackhammer, I could work a dump truck, I could work anything. And then, obviously when you start to think about, when you're 19, 20, 21, 22, well, now how can I parlay what I've learned into a bigger association or organization and duplicate myself? And then that's where it starts to grow. And that's where you say, okay, I still have that really clear vision of what I want my life to look like, but now I'm going to get help in getting there. And that's how you build organizations.
And did you have any mentors or coaches growing up that helped you define that vision and that direction?
Yeah, I mean, the gentleman that I worked for, I mean, besides my father, who was he was a strict disciplinarian, and that was good because we needed that structure. And he would say, if you want it, go find it, go get it, go find a way to get it. So that was really good. So he helped a lot. And then the gentleman that I worked for when I was 15, when I first started digging ditches, he was a guy that he lived kind of a rock star life. And I got to see a lot of that. In fact, I used to help him with I was like his assistant for a while. And that kind of immersed you in, what life could be like, the fun part of life and how you could live it. And so that was kind of a motivator too. And again, it's not all about things. It's about the memories that you do with those things. Okay. It's not about getting a shiny new set of golf clubs. It's about, hitting the first shot on the first tee at St. Andrews, the home of golf in Scotland. That's the real mustard, right?
Yeah.
So
that experience.
Yeah, I had those two people that were pretty instrumental in kind of like saying, hey, this is what life could be like if you want to go find it.
That's awesome. And that was more so just looking at their lives as well and their actions as well as.
Yeah, because I knew how they had gotten there because I watched the organizations grow. Okay. I watched my dad build his company, and then I watched my boss build his company, and I saw how they kind of duplicated their efforts and kept going. And that was pretty valuable. I mean, when I was 18, I had the chance to either go to college or stay working. And I was approached by my boss who said, I want to replicate this business because it's growing so big that we can't possibly travel so far to all these other places from here. So we started replicating the business in the form of a franchise. And here I was 19, going to Chicago and starting a business from scratch and doing it in Columbus and then in Cincinnati and then in Pennsylvania. And I got the chance to start this from scratch on other people's dimes, which is really cool because, the risk isn't necessarily yours, other than from a mental standpoint. But yeah, I got to see some of that, and that was really cool because it was kind of a crash course in college of how to start a business. Like you said earlier, if one of the options was in high school, this is how you start your own company, man, I would have been right in there for sure so fast. But that wasn't available to me.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that certainly helped a lot.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. And then, how old were you when you met your wife?
I was, let's see, 20. Now I was 17 when I met her. We got married at 23, I think.
Yeah. And then, how long after that did you start having a upbringing, having kids, and starting a family?
Um, we had our first child at 33, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had a good 10 years of trying to figure out life and where we were going with it before that happened.
And was that more so just, trying to build a foundation?
Yeah. So my wife was a hairdresser, and she started, at the bottom of the pole, as they say, and she worked her way up and built a nice little business for herself. And then at the same time, I was creating this company, and it was one of those things that it just, it just kind of paralleled for a while, and then, lo and behold, after that, here comes our daughter Nicole, and everything was cool from that point. That's for sure.
And were you still in that business going around the US setting up the franchises through this period, or?
No, that's when I actually moved in '86. I actually moved to in 1986. I moved to Toledo, Ohio, and that's when we started actually our own company. After you live in a suitcase for a while, Marty, it gets kind of tiring. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So at some point, I said to myself, "Hey, I got to do this for myself." And so my brother and I actually came out and started a company here in Ohio, and it worked out pretty well. We ended up starting with 6 people, and I think he's retired now. He's been retired for a long time, but I think we ended up with 200 people at some point.
Wow, that's amazing. And just when you were making that jump, looking back when making that jump to go out on your own, did you have any insecurities or fears that came up, or because you're pretty much inside the other business, you knew what to do and whatnot?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of risk, and I can tell you, when the bank says, we're going to give you some money, not a lot, but we're going to give you this head start, and you sign your whole life away, and you've got 60 days to make it happen or you sink. It's a pretty good motivator, and for us, we knew that we had to get it going, come hell or high water, as they say, and those were stressful days, but they were super fun days, because when you could create things the way you wanted them, man, there's just no better result than that.
And was there a period where it was just you and your brother when you started out? Was that period before you hired other staff and delegated the work?
Yeah, we started with he and I, but we hired 6 people to begin with.
Okay.
People that we knew that would help us get the marketing going. And then again, he left only a couple of years after that. So
yeah.
For the last 36 years, I've been kind of doing it on my own. And it's just a really rewarding thing. Like I said before, to be able to control your day as a business owner, there's just nothing like it. I mean, compared to working in some high rise in some cubicle on the 15th floor, that's just something I could never see for myself.
Yeah, right. Okay. And did you during that period, did you have any financial issues or struggles in making sure you're paying the staff their wages and stuff like that?
Yeah, making payroll is always interesting when you first begin, because you don't have a choice. I mean, you promise people you're going to pay them every week, and you have to come through on that. But I think the interesting thing about having a company is, it seems like for the first year, you're underwater, and you're trying to survive, and you're paying people with money you don't have, and borrowing and doing those types of things. And then it seems like in the second year or third year, you start to at least float where you're just treading water and your nose is above the water and you're like, okay, good. I'm not drowning anymore, but I'm not really happy having fun yet.
Yeah.
And we're just kind of going through. And then after that second or third year, you start to make a couple dollars more than you're paying out. And you're like, okay, well, this is why we're doing this, because, you want to make a go of it. You want to make it work. And then what happens is, like, your fifth and sixth and seventh and eighth year, if you're lucky and you work hard, you start to make, a lot of money. I mean, you become successful. And at that point, the next thing that goes through your mind is, this is cool. Now I need to hang on to it. I hope nobody takes it away from me. So I think that's a cycle. I've talked to a lot of business owners when I wrote the book, and a lot of them go through the same psychological path that I went through. And I think it's a rite of passage, Marty,
Yeah. Because with just thinking it, with I think I told you, with the snow apparel business, the online snow apparel business, like the first, I think we're in our fifth year now, but the first three years, we didn't really, it was just sort of like seeing if there's market fit. And we didn't really, we had a direction we wanted to go in with trying to make it more profitable. But what was happening is we were increasing sales and going, oh, that's great, gross sales, but the overheads would come up. And then the next stage it's me and my wife, is the next stage is like, okay, so how can we make it profitable now? So it's like people are buying it. We've got it in some stores, but we're not profitable. And it'd be like year 1, year 2, and you're like, we're only earning like the first year, like 5,000 after all costs in the first year.
Right.
And so in our head, we're like, it's so much easier just to go work for someone else. But that realization only have happened with how that path unfolded. So I guess, yeah.
There's no doubt it's a rite of passage. There's no doubt that, sweating payroll and, paying those big bills that come in that you didn't expect, or then, you have somebody, some negative thing comes at you that you didn't know was going to happen.
The curveball.
The curveballs. Yeah. There's lots of curveballs. But you know what, though? I got to tell you, I know that it feels risky sometimes, and I know that it feels like you're lonely because, I'm sitting at the chair and there's nobody behind me to give me the advice and encouragement, right? Just like with you guys. But there's no other way to do it. I think, I've been at it 36 years now, and there's no way I could imagine working for somebody else. There's just no way I could imagine being at the behest of other people, or trying to climb some corporate ladder. And, I'm hoping I'm going to get that promotion, but then some other guy comes in or some other gal comes in and takes you out.
Yeah.
I would rather take the risk of doing what I'm doing now and maybe have a few sleepless nights here and there than to have the opposite of that. That's for sure.
And do it on your terms.
Right.
Yeah. And so what would be some practical tools and strategies if someone was listening, they've got their own business, or they may be self-employed, and looking at taking that next step of trying to figure out how to bring someone on because they've got that many, they're wearing all the hats, doing all the different roles, and so they want to bring someone on so they can delegate the stuff they don't want to be doing and focus on, the areas of the business they would like to be working in.
Yeah, I think the first thing, and this is universal for me, I don't think you can do it without this first step. And the first step to me is always the same. And that is, why am I doing it? Like, what does it look like if I do this? What does it look like for me? Like, could I live? And again, this is not a materialistic thing. It's a lifestyle. Okay.
Yeah.
Could I live in that kind of a house? Could I drive that kind of car or truck? Could I vacation in that kind of way? Could I give charity to that type of organization and be involved in it? Could this be my sport or my hobby? What would my pets look like? Would I Would I buy a dog or a cat? And if so, what color? What would you name it? I mean, get real specific about how your lifestyle would suit you, how you would want your perfect lifestyle to be. And remember, we're not all going to chase mega yachts and McMansions and 15 car. I mean, we're not all going to be rap stars, okay, or social influence millionaires. So pick a lifestyle that you think, man, if I could live like this, that would be so cool. And then kind of figure out what it would take to get that. I think that's the first step you have, because if you don't have a why, then you're just doing it wondering what happens next. You can't go through life not anticipating multiple things at the same time. Just like we anticipated vacation, Marty. I mean, if I asked you to plan a vacation 6 months from now and you put that picture behind you in front of you, I would know exactly where you were headed, and you would have the feeling of that water, the breeze, the smell of the pine trees, the air, the sun on your face, whatever. You'd have that feeling, and you'd anticipate that in June, I'm going to go there. Cool. Why can't we anticipate everything in our life like that? We're all so good at doing it with vacations. Let's do it for everything. And so that to me is the long-winded answer to, you got to have a really clear why, and you got to keep it in front of you where you can see it 24 hours a day, because when your brain kind of, soaks that in and downloads it, it takes you there almost automatically.
The power of visualization.
Exactly.
And do you find the more you can, obviously you've still got to put into play the action part of the visualization, not just, sitting there meditating on when's this going to happen? Like, there's that balance of doing that, but also what steps and actions I can take to bring that reality to me.
Yeah, well, I believe this. I think that if you're talking about entrepreneurial characteristics, okay, I hear this all the time. Well, you're lucky you're an entrepreneur. Well, what does that even mean? Okay, here's a crayon and here's a piece of paper. Draw entrepreneur for me. Okay, you can't, because it's a concept. Okay, but it's backed up by a lot of characteristics like persistence, resilience, initiative, faith, courage, generosity, simplicity. It's backed up by those characteristics. And what I will tell you is, we all have those characteristics within us. I totally believe it. It's just, we need a reason for them to come out. I mean, they're kind of like, the shoes in the back of your closet that you haven't worn for a while. Okay. You need a reason to have that happen. And it's my theory, and I think I'm right, that if you know what you want your life to look like, and you know what you're anticipating and going after, all those characteristics come alive inside of you, because now you're controlling you. Nobody else is. Okay. You're controlling and seeing what your future is. Nobody else is. So yeah, there are steps involved, and that's true. But the entrepreneurial beginnings of how do I get there, I think they all start to come alive in you once you know what that looks like.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. Like what I found for us to break out of, okay, we're earning more, but we're not actually making more profit, was some of the practical tools and strategies in Blue Collar Cash, which is your book, in terms of setting up different, multiple savings accounts, which is also, I don't know if you've read Profit First. He also, and that's where I first heard it, was in Profit First, and started, setting up the multiple accounts. And what would happen would be, so the multiple accounts for all the accounts we want, whether that's that vacation or the new car or the house, or is it just purely for new stock, or, the utility costs, and really break it down and just get into that habit of putting money into each account and trying to find that balance. It took a few goes, like would be going good for 3 months, getting the momentum going, and then that curveball of the unexpected bill would arise, and then we just feel, you felt depressed that you had to use that money you saved up and it'd go back into there. And I found, and DeMartini, I don't know if you've done any of DeMartini's work in his books as well, financial books, he says to do the same thing, to set up these accounts, these different accounts, and just start off with, whether that's $1 a day or $2 a day or $5 or $10, and try to find that sweet spot, whether it's just putting money aside once a week and for us, we had to do it day to day. Like I do it every day, and I started off at, $10 a day, and that was too much. It was too much. The curveball would be still coming. And so then I just brought it right back to $5 a day, and that seems to be the sweet spot, and getting that momentum. And what was interesting in getting into those habits was we actually were getting more sales. We were attracting more money as we were valuing our savings and wealth building.
Yeah, and the interesting thing with that is that's why I tell everybody to start small. I mean, start with a bill that is just harassing you. Like, you have this $1,000 bill you want to get rid of. Okay. So that's $50 a week for 20 weeks, or it's $20 a week for 50 weeks, or, I mean, you can figure out the math, right?
Yeah.
But I think what's important is that once you see that you can do it and it's automatic, and all you have to do is, live another day, and that's going to happen, right? Then you begin to build this confidence. And this, I really like the way this works. I mean, I kind of like the automatic process of this. And so I tell everyone to start small. And then what happens is your behavior changes and increases your effectiveness to want to do more of these things. So you're right. You can't start off saying, I'm putting all these accounts out there, and I have all these very high expectations of all these things I want to buy, do, or acquire, or whatever. You have to kind of work your path and work your confidence level into it. Because for me, I had to keep creating more revenue within my company, but I knew I could match that enthusiasm with what my reward was.
Yeah.
And I think that's the cool thing. A lot of times I think people don't think big enough. I mean, they think, well, this is where I'm going to be. This is my lifestyle. And I always say, well, what if you could do this or live like that? What would it take to get your company to the next level to make that happen? And that's where the real magic is, because, they say doing any kind of growth starts with you feeling uncomfortable. And uncomfortable is you're in a place you've never been before. It's unfamiliar. And that's okay, because from those feelings comes growth. And I think if you say to yourself, what if, sit down with your wife or your husband and say, we're living like this, and that's cool, but what if we could do that? What would it take for us to get there? And then, and again, you'll find a way to make it happen.
Definitely. And having the power of, having the patience and having, how is it of service to others is, I feel, is a big key.
There's something to be said about charity. I've been to 100 black tie affairs where it's a charity auction and whatever. And you go to these charities and, okay, I'm going to bid on this Caribbean vacation. And the money goes to charity, but I'm expecting something out of it. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think the money needs to be given of your time, talent, and treasure without expectation of anything in return. And I'll tell you why I say that. For some reason, and I can't explain it, the more I gave, years ago and then recently, the more I gave, the more I was blessed with results. And I'm not saying that's how you do it. I'm not saying you should count on it or you should want that. I'm saying it just kind of happens.
More opportunities.
More opportunities. Yeah. Now, you still have to work those opportunities, but they usually show up in revenue at some point.
Yeah.
The more you give, the more you seem to get. And again, I hate to say that because I don't want to parallel those two as if they're connected, but it just seems to kind of work out that way.
Yeah. So. Not in a way of doing it for expecting to get that result, doing it because you actually want to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's great. And at what, with you raising your children, what year in your business did your daughter have to deal with that adversity when she was 12 years old?
Well,
And
that
can you
would be.
and can you talk about that?
Oh yeah, yeah. Um, that would be 13 years ago, and it was a tough time. It was a scary time for her. It was a really scary time for her mother and I. I mean, 5 years is a long time to be living on pins and needles. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And but you know what? Nicole is an amazing gal. She's braver and stronger than I am. I mean, for what she went through, to lose half your sight and yet still become the captain of your golf team in high school is ridiculous. I don't know how she does it. It was kind of a impetus for me writing Blue Collar Cash, because I sat around in a lot of doctors' offices thinking, okay, what's important here? What should I be teaching my daughter about what's important? And I kept coming back with these three words: comfort, peace, and freedom. And they're throughout the book. And I couldn't get rid of these three words. They're connected like a triangle. And you probably saw that when you read it or when you heard it. So I thought, well, this is really what we should all be chasing, because it's individually different for each one of us. Like getting back to the vacation, I once asked 20 people to draw their favorite destination vacation, and all 20 of them were different. Some wanted to go to the mountains like behind you. Some wanted to go to the lake. Some wanted to go hiking. Some wanted to go play golf. Some wanted to go to Disney World, to the beach. They were all different. And it led me to believe that, wow, everyone has their own idea of that perfection, right? So, yeah, I kept coming back with those three words, and I started writing a letter to her, actually. And I combined that with the coaching that I had been doing with my own people here for years. And it was my wife who said, you got some great stuff there. You should tell that story beyond the four walls of your building. And I just started writing down stories, and one came after another, and interviewing some amazing people that were friends of mine, and putting down some concepts that I kind of thought worked. And I don't have any letters after my name, Marty. I don't have any training whatsoever. I was an involuntary life coach at best.
Yeah.
And but yeah, it worked out pretty well. And I had 80,000 words in about 7 months, and then it just went off from there.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. And like your daughter's outlook going through that adversity, do you think her positive outlook on it had a lot to do with how you and your wife were being on the day-to-day through that period? Like, you were keeping a more positive outlook or figure it out mentality?
That is a really great question. And I got to tell you, I've been on almost 150 podcasts, and no one's ever asked me that. So that's a great question. Thank you for that. I do think that's the way it was, because we decided that we could never show her our fear. Okay. We didn't hide things from her, but we could never show her how petrified we were. And that everything was just going to be okay. I mean, we're going to find our way through this. And I remember telling her, I said, I think we all go through, 3 or 4 absolutely horrendous things in our lifetime, whether it's an accident, an injury, a loss of a loved one, whatever it might be, a financial problem, whatever, a crime, who knows? And I said, this is a big one. This is one that is one of those 3. So, feel as though you're getting, you got that out of the way now. Okay. And you can move on with your life. And just know that, you're going to always be able to find someone who's a lot less fortunate than you. That's for sure. And in fact, we did on the day of her surgery. We were walking back to the hotel, and there was a homeless guy there, and Nicole looked at me and she said, "You know what, Dad, I don't have it nearly as bad as that guy does." Okay. And that just blew our minds, because she's 12 and she's recognizing that. She's still half sedated probably, but
yeah,
it was a pretty momentous, period of time for us. And I thank God that she came through it, and she's fine now. But yeah, I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's amazing. It really is. And do you feel like, how old is she now?
25.
She's 25. Like, has that really given her a good foundation, I guess, to tackle life.
Yeah, she's extremely caring about other people, and I like that. I love that about her. She's her mother did a good job of teaching her, how to treat other people, and she's really caring of other people. She's also incredibly detailed, which I'm not. So I don't know where she got that from, but yeah, she's actually studying. She graduated with her master's degree as an architect, and she's working on like green building. They call it passive house building, which is low emission type building, low cost buildings, that kind of thing. And she loves it, and she's running her own little business, and her and her husband, and it's fun to watch them grow. It's fun to watch them experience some of the same things that we did, and it's going to be a great ride.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And if there was someone out there that's listening to this or watching this, and they've gone through something like that, or they're the parents of a child that's gone through it, and they can see whether it's themselves or their children or a loved one sort of falling into the victim mentality side of it, how would you suggest, or what would you do to help them, or if it is yourself, to shift out of that state?
Well, it's always the same. Now what? Okay, you are a victim. Fine. Now what?
Yeah.
Okay, that happened to you. Fine. Now what?
Yeah.
Or you went through that problem. Okay, I get it. I'm sorry that it happened. It's terrible. But now what? And have them understand that, if you remember from the book, the 5-gallon bucket head, those emotions are a choice. Now, you can be driven to have emotions, and there's no doubt. If someone slaps you in the face, anger comes quickly, right?
Yeah.
But anger is still a split-second choice in that scenario. And that's why I say, you're in control of the way you think for the next 5 minutes. Okay. That happened to you. Now what? It's your choice. How are you going to feel? Are you going to let anger and frustration and depression and jealousy and fear, are you going to let them just rule your head? Or are you going to kick them out like a bouncer at a club and say, I'm only letting in joy and curiosity and wonder and anticipation? You know what I mean? And when you get people to understand that those really are a choice, they might look at you for a second and say, I'm not sure I'm buying that. But then you set them down and have them go through some of the things that they think about and how that affects them. And then they recognize, you know what? I do have the ability to stop being jealous right now. I have the ability to stop being frustrated. I have the ability to stop being anger. And I can switch those to some other positive emotion. And I think that's just the first step in doing that.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, like I feel like with the pandemic, with the snow apparel business, we took a big hit. Obviously, lots of people took a big hit, but we nearly went bankrupt. And that curveball I did not see happening because the first year of the pandemic, we actually did our best year of sales, not profit, but of sales. And we were like, right, I think it's finally going to take off. We just, wasn't sure at the start. And then the second year, we went from our best year to our worst year. To get through that's the worst year. Like we did I spiraled into that victim mentality. Like what else, trying to start my own business here. What else can go wrong? And like you said, I got to the point where it's like, well, yeah, now what? Like each day is still going to be the same. I'm still getting the same result. So I've got to figure out how to shift out of this state, and I've got to do something different if I want a different reality.
Yeah, it's called being sick and tired of being sick and tired, right?
That's it.
Now, I have to be honest with you. I've been running this company for 36 years, and even you think you've seen it all and you've done it all and you've been through it all and you've been beat up in so many different ways and so you think you're experienced, right? Well, when that pandemic hit, I always wondered because you watch these movies about a pandemic hitting and how it ruins the world. And you think, wow, could that happen? And then when it does happen, there's a lot of like, wow, what's going to happen next? I mean, so, but even then you have a choice, because for us, we shifted the way we marketed. I mean, we replace struggling foundations, like bad basements that are moldy and wet and all cracked up. And we replace that thought process with, now, if we do this, your house is going to be a lot healthier. And so, because we have air handling equipment that we install, and we've been doing that, and we never really push the fact that it cleans the air in your house. And if the air is cleaner in your house, you're going to have less chance of transmitting disease and everything else. And so we took a negative situation and took not advantage of it, but took the power back from it. You know what I'm saying?
Finding the positive.
Yeah. Like for example, in your business, I would say this. Well, I know for a fact that there's a lot more leisure time during the pandemic. And in our town, you couldn't get a kayak. You couldn't get, camping equipment. You couldn't get, basketball hoops. You couldn't get swimming pools or decks, because they were going crazy with demand. So I thought to myself, okay, well, people they're going to be out in their front yard throwing a Frisbee again. They're going to be walking their dogs again. They're going to be camping, or they're going to be grilling out or doing those kinds of things. And guess what? That's what happened. So I could see in your business, you could say, well, you got more leisure time. Why don't you go skiing?
Yeah.
and see, you change the pandemic to something positive. So
looking for the positive, looking how it's serving you. What's the benefit in the perceived negative?
Exactly. Because if you're not careful, you will wallow in, oh my God, now what? I'm in trouble. I'm in all this trouble.
Yeah. And that can turn into a month, 2 months, a year, years.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's why I think it's so awesome when you think, well, you know what, how I think is my own choice. What emotions I choose to put in my head every day is my decision. Just like, what I'm going to eat that day. It's my decision. And it's immensely powerful. And I don't think people use it nearly as much as they should.
And on a day to day, just so people might get a deeper understanding of you, like, do you, like in terms of habits, like how do you start your day off? Like, do you get up at 6 a.m, 5 a.m, 4 a.m, or are you a bit of a later person? And how do you try to start your day on that front foot that you want to dictate the day, how you want your day to go?
Well, first off, I let the light wake me up. I'm just a believer in that. I don't know that I could live in Alaska if it's dark all the time. So I let the light wake me up, and that's usually around the 7 to 8 o'clock hour. Okay.
Yeah.
And so that happens, but I have a pub on the first floor of my house. I walk there and I have my protein shake. It's the same protein shake that I've been making for 35 or 6 years. I have all these ingredients that I put into it. It's kind of like my own, mad scientist vegetable protein drink. And I do that. My family does too. When my kids were living with us during the pandemic, they had theirs and my wife had hers. Now it's just my wife and I. And I think about my day. I think about, what potential is going to happen this day while I have this protein shake. But I also do one other thing. I have it's a rotating frame of pictures, and these pictures just rotate, and they're all pictures of my friends and family doing cool things, memories. Okay. Being here, playing golf there, boating there, doing this, doing that, weddings or whatever it might be. And I look at that frame because I want to be constantly reminded of how grateful I am and how blessed I am, and how memories like that are more important than anything else. That's why I said to you before, if that frame just rotated pictures of cash, that gets you nothing. Okay. Yeah. But the frame rotates pictures of beautiful memories. And I kind of let that soak in, and I laugh a little bit like, wow, that was cool. I remember doing that. And that just kind of rejuvenates my head into, okay, now what's the next thing? What's the next thing we're going to tackle? And that gets me going. I mean, a lot of times I work out in the morning. If I don't feel it, I work out in the afternoon, but I still do it. And I try to be as disciplined as I can, especially with the way I feel and what I eat and the supplements I take and, the peptides and all the different things that you can do to make your body as healthy as it can be. So yeah, it's pretty much trying to take care of myself as much as I can.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And do you try not to look at your phone or emails before a certain time, or you're not fussed on that side of things?
I don't necessarily look at my emails until it's, more like 9-10 o'clock.
Yeah.
But I do, have you heard of the game called Wordle?
Yes.
Okay. So my family and I play Wordle. So it's my son-in-law and myself versus my wife and my daughter. And we do it every morning. So that's one thing to kind of get your brain going when you first wake up. So that would be the only reason I look at my phone. Typically, I might check the news a little bit, but not much. But I have a pretty consistent routine. And I do stuff like that. But I'm not one of those ones. I mean, obviously, I have a lot of different things I do for a living, so my phone's important, but I try not to let it overrule my life.
Yeah. No, the reason I ask is like I just found for myself is I've got to really, construct my morning so I'm ready for the curveballs of the days, because they're still going to come. But I found like if I look at an email or a text message when I first get up, I'm in that reactive state, and I find the rest of the day I'm just pushing shit uphill and attracting even more curveballs and just going, what a momentum of shit instead of positive momentum. And so I found, and I'd test it. I'd test the days where, so like I wake up in the morning. I don't know if you meditate or do breath work, but first thing in the morning, I'll wake up and I'll do half an hour meditation or breath work. Then I'll in an hour or so, then I'd go for a run to raise my that vibration and change my state. And then I hate running, but I know it's good for me. And then I found a way to enjoy running to an extent where it's like I'll listen to an audio book, or I'll go, okay, I'll get to listen to an audio book or a podcast that's inspiring. Right. And then I'll go jump in the ocean afterwards as my treat.
Oh, that's nice. That's very nice.
And then I don't look at try not to look at the phone and emails till, like you said, about 10 o'clock or so, just so. And then from there, I just seem to be more centered for me. But yeah, so that seems to work for me.
Yeah, we for a while we were doing Wim Hof breathing around this little fountain I have in the backyard, and I found that guy is something else. I mean, the stuff that he does and the stuff he makes other people do in the cold. Yeah. But it is amazing how you can take something like cold and just kick it right out of your mind by just changing the way you think about cold.
Definitely.
I mean, he's bizarre, and he swims in 36-degree water. I mean, how do you do that?
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's what I was trying to say earlier, Marty. I think the difference between somebody like Elon Musk or Richard Branson or, Stephen Jobs or any of those guys, I think they have the ability to connect with the visual side of their brain more than other people do. Now, you can say, well, they're a lot smarter. Okay. But okay, again, here's my crayon. Here's a piece of paper. Draw smarter. You can't do that. What does that mean? That means he's accessing more parts of his brain than we are. That's what it means. So in my mind, if we can learn how to do something, which is first off free of charge, and it doesn't require any training, you literally just sit and think about what if people would attack or attract that side of their brain more often, they would feel totally different about how their life is going forward. And I think things like breathing and meditation are designed to quiet the crazy side of our brain and open up the creative or the calm or the peaceful side of our brain so that we can start visualizing. I think that's why you do it. I mean, when you meditate, a lot of people say, think of a place or think of a sound or you're visualizing at that point. So to me, you're unlocking that side of what could possibly be. And if we do that a little more often, we're going to live a lot better lives.
Amazing. Amazing. And in terms of, I guess we go, we'll say play out a scenario. Obviously, we're dealing with at the moment, I guess, recessions, depression, fear, more uncertainty, a build off of the pandemic. If someone was like they're in their, we'll go through the years, they could be 17 or 18 and they don't know what they want to do. Where would you suggest to start and look?
The first thing I would do is repeating myself is get that picture, keep that picture in front of you, no matter what, keep that picture in front of you, look at it a lot. And then you, especially in this day and age, Marty, with so many people choosing not to do jobs that require working with their hands, there is always going to be demand there. And it's even worse now because colleges are saying, well, you can't be a plumber or carpenter, you'll never be successful. Colleges are saying you got to go to school or else. And they're convincing teachers and they're convincing parents and school counselors and even the students themselves that that's the only way to go. Never been true, not true now. And it's even less true going forward. So I would say that in because of that, there's so much opportunity for you to kind of job shop and go out and try different things. Between where I'm standing right now in the highway, there's probably 30 signs that say help wanted. So go hit those things and see where you fit. It's almost like the shop class where you're walking down the hallway and you see all these different opportunities. Go hit those things and see if something doesn't spark you. Okay. Yeah. Because if it does, then you can say, okay, I've got my picture. I've got this. Ditch digging might not have been in the top 100 things I wanted to do, but it was a means to create my life. So I did it and I'm glad I did it. Right. That's the same thing I'm telling your audience is there's some things out there that you might unexpectedly go, wow, this is pretty cool. I kind of like how that guy's day is. I'd like to go work for him and then figure out my way to get into that same scenario. And you and I both know, when I started my company, we used to use pencils and long form graph paper to keep our accounting. Now you can start a business with a truck and one of these things, a cell phone, and run everything on it. It's never been easier. So there's a lot of advantages there. So that's all I'm saying is jump into some different things, see if something sparks you, but keep the picture in front of you the whole time.
That's awesome. And if you're in you're in your 40s or your 50s, 60s, even 70s, and you've been let go from your job, and you're just thinking, well, that was my identity. I've just done that job for 30 odd years. What would you say to that type of person to start? Or if you were in their shoes, what would you?
I would say go back to when you were 17, 18, 19. Try to remember what you thought the world looked like back then. Okay. Because I just had a guy who's 50 years old. He was the one who was in the 15th floor in the cubicle. He was selling medical supplies. He had a lot of college debt going on. I mean, it is one of those things where it took him forever to pay it off. He's had it paid off for a while, but it took him forever to pay that debt off. So he couldn't start his life for a while. And he said to me, he goes, when I was in college in the summers, I worked at a plumbing company. And I love these guys. They were like brothers to me. And I love the work. I love the day. I love the control. I love the scheduling. And I always thought I should have done that. I should have stayed there and done that. So I said, so I quit my job. I went back to working because these plumbers, even the helpers, were making $30 an hour. And he's like, I went back to that. I went back to controlling my life. I've never been happier. So all I can tell you is, if you are that person that's later in life, you should still look back at your younger self and say, what were the passions I had? And maybe just give one of those a shot, because you just never know what might happen there.
Awesome. And just one last scenario, if it's a person, he's had an injury from work, he was a builder, engineer, electrician, plumber, works with his hands, he's had the injury and he can't go back to that type of role, then, and he's wondering, well, now what do I do? Or could be he's had an accident, a disability has occurred.
Yeah, I would say in that scenario that, if you let's just take the construction industry for a second. Okay. Well, there's planning, there's drawing, there's supplying, there's distributing, there's all the support systems that keep you on a construction site, even if you're not hammering a nail anymore. So there's a lot of ancillary services that support the same industry that you love. Hang out in some of those and see if something doesn't strike you, because everyone's looking for people. I mean, trust me, this isn't going away anytime soon. It's only going to get worse as colleges keep winning the battle of hearts and minds, and kids keep thinking, plumber, I'm not doing that. That's below me. Okay. Find those areas, stick within that organization, stick within that industry, and look around and say, what kind of support things would make me feel like I'm still working in that place, even if I'm not swinging that hammer anymore.
Awesome. And who do you think would the book Blue Collar Cash be best suited for?
Well, that's a great question, because I was surprised at the answer to this. And when I first wrote it, I thought, okay, the people that are going to read this hopefully are 16 to 25, and they're figuring out what they want their life to look like. And that's an option for them. But then it came down to the plumber I was just telling you about, who was in that cubicle. He's 50 and he's like, I'm done with this.
Yeah.
So someone transitioning out of that current lifestyle or current career into another one, that's a whole nother reader. Okay. The third one was a little surprising, and that is I had a whole lot of managers or bosses or owners of companies that wanted to build this entrepreneurial like employee. Okay. And because I talk a little bit about that, about how, groups of people working together for a common good can drive your company a lot further than you can ever drive it yourself. And so I had some businesses that were kind of book clubbing the book, where they would buy a bunch and hand it out to their staff, and then they would read it and they would talk about it. Because that's certainly the meteoric rise that our company experienced, was because of that aspect of it. And so, yeah, there's kind of three different kind of readers there. And I'm again, just blessed and grateful that they're doing it.
Awesome. And you've got an online course. Would you like to talk about that?
Well, yeah, a lot of times I'll see someone who's read a lot of books and they have them up on the shelf and they're almost trophies. Okay. I have all these trophies. I don't know that they can remember what's in most of those books after 3 months or 6 months or whatever. And certainly they're not putting everything that they read in all of those books into practice. You couldn't possibly do all that. So what I decided to do was take the book and say, I need to make this interactive. I need to make this impactive. I need to make it downloadable into your brain. So I built this course that it takes 8 weeks. It's 45 minutes to an hour per week. It's all online. You could probably do it in a weekend if you really wanted to, but I'd rather have you take some time to think about it. But what this course does is it takes some of the concepts that we talk about in the book and makes you actually do them. Okay? Because once you do, it's like when we talked about cold. If I walk from my house to my garage, which is where my gym is, and I have to cross through 20 degrees, I can choose to be freezing, or I can choose to say cold is great for inflammation. And I walk that 30-yard walk and I feel the cold healing me now all of a sudden, right?
Yeah.
So you just have to flip your mind as to where you look at things. And that's what this course does. So when you're done with the course, you will absolutely think different about your life and how you can control it. And the cool thing is it's $129. It's not a lot of money. You get a free $25 book with it. And if you buy one of those, you automatically get to buy and give one away to someone else. So
wow.
You buy one for yourself and you give one away free to someone, a loved one, neighbor, son, brother, daughter, whoever it might be that might need some help too. So just know if you're helping yourself, you're helping somebody else at the same time.
Very powerful. Very powerful. And like, if you could sum up Your superpower. What do you think? What do you think it is?
I guess my superpower would be, not only do I have the ability to see things, okay, but I have the ability to get other people to see things for themselves. And I always say this: I can't get what I want, nor can my company get what it wants or needs, until all of you get what you want first. It's absolutely true. If you're a boss out there and you're not saying this, you're missing the boat big time. Because when you can empower other people who actually believe that you believe in them and their goals and their futures and their wants and needs, you're going to have a very powerful team. So to get others to see what they want for themselves and be a little selfish in the process, get what they want first and what the company wants second, is a really cool thing to do. And I encourage anyone out there to give that a shot.
Awesome, Ken. Awesome. And where can people find you?
Well, if you go to kenrusk.com, you'll see my website there. And you'll find the book there. You'll find the course there. And you'll also see what we're doing. I have some blogs and some information on there. And you can also follow me on all the socials. It's called Ken Rusk Official. So I'm everywhere on those socials. And I've got a bunch of videos on TikTok where I just motivational stuff and some helpful things. And, again, I hope people go out and they become better from it. It's why I do it. My life was good before I wrote this book, and I didn't do it for the money. I did it to kind of give back, and it's been working. It's been working in a pretty big way, and it became a bestseller last fall. And again,
congratulations!
Yeah,
like I said, it's a great book, and it's got it. What's great about it is the tips and strategies in the book. People think, I've got to spend $3,000 on this workshop to start something, and that it's like you can just bring it back right down to the power of a podcast, an audio book, or just a book.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Ken. Thanks again for being on Unlocked from Within.
Anytime. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening or watching another episode of Unlocked from Within. Please like and subscribe to hear our latest episodes and interviews. Please share this episode with anyone you think it may help or inspire. If you'd like to know more about Ken Rusk, please check him out on his website at kenrusk.com, LinkedIn, Ken Rusk, Facebook, Ken Rusk Official, Twitter, Ken Rusk Official, TikTok at kenrusk.official, Instagram, Ken Rusk Official. If you'd like to read his book and purchase his book, you can get that on his website. You can also get that at Amazon in hard copy, Kindle copy, or if you'd like to listen to it on Audible, you can do that as well. Again, thanks again for listening. Have a great day.